And welcome back to No Free Drinks. This is Lena D. Today's topic, hooking up with exes and why it's always a bad idea.
Oh, shit.
It's just a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. I've done that twice now. One was my first ex-girlfriend. We had known each other for about 7 years. And then, so we were like really, really close. We got back together twice.
Jesus.
So, yeah, so I didn't make the mistake not once, I made it twice. And, yeah, whatever reason you broke up the first time is probably going to come back up again the second, and in this case, the third time. And then also did it again more recently, except we didn't get back together. But we did sleep around for about another, 5 months after.
Golly.
Yeah, the sex was amazing. And I'll admit there was a big emotional attachment as well on my end, which is why it doesn't work.
You're a glutton for punishment. That's what that shit sounds like.
Yeah, eventually I pretty much told her, like, just don't respond to me. Like, if I text you, just don't respond. Like, I need you to save me from myself. Because they were just bad. It just kept going back. And, yeah, just don't do it.
The walls are that good. Huh?
Do you think that she would share the same opinion? Like, would she, if we were speaking to her right now, do you think she would also say that it was a bad idea?
I think so. We kind of briefly talked about it right as it ended. And, yeah, we're like, we probably shouldn't have done that. And it's funny. Well, not really funny. But I always run into, her friends in the city. And I'm like, oh my God. This is a constant reminder. So, yeah, I think she'll agree with that sentiment.
Well, I've done that shit more times than I'd like to admit. Anyway, this is my first story is actually in college, where I was playing basketball. I was playing basketball on the basketball team or whatever, just practicing, and she was on the basketball team as well. Funny thing about her is she was taller than I was. She was, I think she was a 5'11" guard. I'm not going to say her name, obviously. Her name's Vicky. Vicky's everywhere. She's all around the world, baby. So Vicky was a little taller than I was, which was it. A lot of guys have this thing about tall girls or whatever, but I don't. But I'm rambling now. That's besides the point. Anyway, so we broke up. It was actually a mutual breakup because we just didn't have time for each other. I was always hitting the books. She was always, practicing hitting the books. And when we were doing none of that, we had jobs and stuff. So it was just very mutual. She saw me dancing a week after. She saw me dancing with this other chick or whatever in the club or whatever. And she got mad, almost punched the girl in the face, almost decked me in the face.
Y'all broke up.
And we broke up, but then we ended up hooking up that night or whatever. Because I was a little tipsy. I was a little hammered. The following week or whatever, we ended up hooking up again. I don't know how that came about. I remember. She came over to my room or whatever. She just wanted to talk through something or whatever. But
wanted to talk.
Yeah, that was a bad idea.
Fell for the old one.
I fell for the okie doke. I just want to talk to you about something, blah, blah, blah. Why did we break up? This, that, whatever. And turn into some sex. And and then a month later after that, she knew someone who I was hooking up with, got jealous about that girl, and then she came into my room, kind of just invited herself over to the building that I was staying in, and then she went into my room because I usually leave my door open at this point. Came into the room and started cursing me out about why I was hooking up with her friend. I didn't know that they knew each other. I guess the friend had told her that we were hooking up or whatever. She was like, how could you do this to me? You're a fucked up person, blah, blah. Ended up hooking up that night, too. So it was weird. Lena D is looking at me like, what the fuck?
What the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, so I ended up hooking up, and it was the worst idea. It came back to bite me in so many different ways. Her friends didn't like me at that point. She was spreading rumors about me. Like, it was just so bad for so many different reasons. So you think that I would have learned my lesson? Nope, not Wesley. Just kept hooking up with some other chicks. And you know why I kept hooking up with these other girls? Because I knew a new class of freshmen were going to come in or whatever. So it didn't even really matter. So yeah. I mean, like, and stories like that just get progressively worse. I've had my car keyed once after I was hooking up with her, and I said I didn't want to hook up with her anymore. Yeah, just don't do it. I have a bunch of stories where vandalism has happened. I've gone into my room one time and all my shit was like upside down. Like, nothing was stolen. It was just a big fucking mess that I had to clean up. Yeah.
Damn, you date some crazy women.
I mean, but the crazy ones got the... Let me stop.
Sex usually is better.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's them crazy ones. They got them good.
And you guys, and
stuff,
both of you
though.
don't learn. You literally.
I mean,
both
well,
of you
no,
don't
but
learn.
I learned like maybe a couple years later.
So the reason I actually have a different reason as to why I think not like hooking up with an ex is a bad idea. It has nothing to do with crazy stories or anything to what you talked about. But I've actually continued to hook up with my exes, not because I very much care for them, but because I care.
Cold-blooded.
I basically am looking to sort out my own emotional kinks.
Okay.
So in situations where we've broken up, I mean, it's kind of how I've dealt with most of my breakups is that we've decided to break up. The relationship isn't going well. We just weren't compatible anymore. And I've always found myself going back to hook up with them, at least anywhere. It's ranged from a span of 4 months to a span of a couple years where I'd go back, even if I was dating other people or seeing other people or sleeping with other people, that I still kept them around as an option. But it was because, and I thought to myself, why do I keep doing this? Because I know that we're not getting back together again. I actually, at that point, don't have an interest of getting back together with them. But I ended up finding out that I do it because I'm trying to cut myself off physically because it's somebody that I obviously enjoyed having sex with. And like the whole idea of that we're not going to have sex again because we're no longer together like that, sort of, I need some time to get through that. So many times I'd continue to see them and they thought that, oh, maybe she still thinks that there's a future there. And what I was actually doing was emotionally disconnecting myself from them, even though we continued to have sex. And the first time around, it didn't matter because my ex moved to another state and, you know, it was kind of like a clean, easy, we just stopped seeing each other because we weren't, like, I was going to college. He had moved to another state and started his own life out there and stuff. So that didn't matter. But there was another ex-boyfriend that actually I led him on into thinking that I was going to get back together with him because we kept hooking up like on and off for a period about 2-3 years. And eventually I was of the mindset of I've kind of gotten what I've wanted out of this and I'm now ready to completely cut ties. And I did that, but it was at his expense because then he continued to contact me for the next 2-3 years to kind of see if I was emotionally available for him.
Wow.
So in that case, I would say that was a pretty shitty thing to do as a human being. But I was doing it because I wanted to find a way for me to leave the situation and wasn't really considering the other person's emotions and what they were getting as the message coming out of my actions. So I would just advise against it. I think there's probably better ways to deal with emotional either ties that you have, and a better way of not having to rely on somebody else to get through those things and actually sort it out on your own. So that's why I would say it's not a good idea, because if you're feeling that you still need to be involved with someone that you've been in a relationship with before, you're not actually doing a clean cut away from it, and you're actually holding on to a relationship that wasn't going to work out, but you're not being fair in how you're growing from that situation. You're kind of just exhausting yourself out and using the other person as a part of that process. And I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, I think it's tough as it gets messy. It's like in your story as well as mine, like the two people have different reasons for hooking up. So for me, like I was kind of ex-boyfriend the last one, I was hoping we would get back together, knowing fully well that probably wasn't going to happen. But for whatever reason, like hold on to that 0.001% chance of it happening. And I don't blame her at all. Like I enjoyed myself as well, but like I don't know, it's messy because you both have different reasons for being in it. And then that's why eventually I was like, all right, just save me from myself, please. Like just don't answer any text messages for me. So it's just messy.
I think both of you alluded to this. Like for me, I think the reason why I did it was because, you know, for me it was just being emotionally immature because I didn't really like. I got to think about it. I'm 18, 19 years old. You know, just figuring out what it's like to be in a relationship, and then you know, I think this is like the second time I had broken up with someone. So I really didn't know kind of like how to work out those kinks like that. And, you know, it just seemed like, okay, well, you know, we could get back together. It's going to be better now. Things are, and not really knowing that like, man, this shit ain't going to get better. Like,
things won't change.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not going to, you know, and this is not, you know, this is not the, like in the old school where like you end up with that one person you meet in college for life and blah, like that's not gonna happen. Let's stop it. Like move on.
And even from an emotional perspective, like your own emotional health, it's not good to put yourself in those situations where you already know that the relationship isn't a healthy one. Otherwise, you would have stayed together and worked things out. You already know that that person has either hurt you in the past or you hurt them, or there wasn't a situation where there's compatibility around that. And it's like you keep going back to that, expecting that something's going to change. But if anything, you're doing more damage to yourself and making worse situations out of it. So you mentioned the fights and the jealousy and even though you weren't in a relationship anymore, but in her mind, she still felt like she had a claim to you. And that also messes around with how people think of you and also how you're thinking of yourself, and probably kept you from meeting other people that knew too much about the drama and just didn't want to be involved in it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely not healthy. And you know it's not what you should be doing, because I remember like, damn, I can't tell none of my friends that we're still sleeping together. They're going to give me
it was
so
like a dark
much.
secret.
Yeah. No,
like, where you going, Brock? Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I had that same issue. Like a lot of my friends at the time were asking like, why is she flipping out? Whatever. Aren't you guys broken up? And, you know, it was kind of like embarrassing to say like, yeah, we're in this in between state. We don't know what's happening, but we're still kind of together. There's a lot of confusion that goes with it too.
Well, that's interesting that you're calling it this in-between state. And we're talking about emotional health. We're talking about what's good for you in terms of how you're spending the time and even potential side effects of you carrying on the behavior. But aren't there more effective ways that you could get through that in-between stage that doesn't involve sleeping with your ex? What would be some things that you would do differently?
I mean, for me, it'd probably be like, I think at that point, the season was over. I just had idle hands. So, you know, it was, for me, just, I wouldn't say boredom, but it was just like, well, all these other chicks don't like me, so I might as well just try to kind of, I wouldn't say move on with her, but it's just like, you know, she's around and let's just do it. And I know that's not like the best way to take care of it, like not the best way to handle it, I should say, but I don't know.
So I guess to rephrase the question is, what would you do differently to avoid that situation? Because if it was convenient, she was around, it's not like she was making herself unavailable.
Right.
So to deal with that situation in a better way or in a healthier way?
I think just be basically more direct about, how I feel and move on. I think I don't, it's not going to be some long and drawn out thing. It's really just be direct. I think that was my problem back then. Like, I wasn't direct enough to say, I can't do this shit with you anymore. Cause quite frankly, you make me grow gray hairs and I'm not trying to deal with all this stress that you're putting on me because, if I'm with some other woman, you're going to have some problem with it. Like, It's got to be a clean break. We're done. We're finished. It's over. I wish I had taken care of it like that, but that didn't happen. And obviously I didn't learn my lesson because there was 2 other times where, like similar situations have happened. So until I really got it, like, stop doing this. So.
Yeah, it's tough. I was just thinking about it. I was like, both situations, I had loved that ex. So I don't think I was probably making the most rational of decisions. And going back, I probably would have done the same thing because of that, the love I had for that person. So I don't know if I didn't love them, probably just like do stuff that I enjoyed, so just hanging out with friends, just like the more distractions, the better. Just so like trying to better myself through that. But I think once you throw extra emotions on top of it, it's hard to think clearly, at least personally, and then just be like, you know what, this is not good for me. I know it's not good for me, so I probably shouldn't do that. But the following through of identifying that this is not a good thing, and then, but you make me happy sometimes, or we're not fighting or whatever. So.
Right.
Did you ever try to have conversations with her of what was going wrong whenever you got back together? Or was it more of hopes that things would just work out, and then when they didn't work out, you were like, oh shit, I'm in this situation again?
The first situation, we talked about like what we kind of wanted to work on ourselves, and as a couple, just nothing changed. It was just kind of just waiting. It's like, okay, this is just getting ridiculous now. The second situation, no, we just never talked about it. Kind of just, she broke up with me. We did like a 1-month hiatus. Then she reached back out to like, she technically didn't give me any closure when she broke up. Like just like no real reason. I'm like, So she reached back out. We had a sit down session, some bar, I think in Brooklyn. And then she gave what she thought was an explanation, and then hooked up then, was hooking up for like 5 months or so. Like, it was just terrible. Like, never discussed like what this could potentially be. Nothing. It was just like, all right, gonna pretend that never happened. Just like,
just kept smashing.
I was like, oh, like, this is terrible. Like, this went from December to pretty much like a week or so before graduation.
Wow.
Shit.
Yeah. So it was not. Yeah, I was like, oh man.
You're like, this is a lot. I think in my situations, I wish I would have had more self-confidence in myself that I was going to get through it by myself instead of having to rely on the physical aspect, because I was pretty much using sex as a way to disconnect myself emotionally from the person, which is kind of a backwards way to do it.
Interesting.
And anybody that I've told that to they actually don't make sense of it. So I don't think it's probably, one, I know for sure it's not the healthiest way to deal with like an emotional sort of withdrawal and trying to get through a breakup. But I think it also, as a person, almost weakened me in a way, because I was never brave enough to just take on the consequences of that breakup and the emotional ties that came with it immediately. I kept prolonging it as the longer that I kept physically sleeping with the person. So I wish I would have just taken more time for myself and asked myself why I kept doing that and why I felt that I needed that physical aspect, and just spent more time on what other people do when they break up. And it's like distracting themselves, finding other interests that they have or going back to do the things that they've normally enjoyed doing before they were in a relationship.
Drink 2 bottles of wine, listen to some R&B songs.
Sleep with other people who is not your ex.
There's like so many other things that I could have done with my time. And I wish that in retrospect now, I'm just like, yeah, that would have made much more sense instead of 1, using someone else, 2, prolonging something that wasn't healthy, and 3, not giving myself the space and the time that I needed. So I think it's important, especially for people that are going through a tough breakup or people that have been in a long-term relationship and are now breaking up because it didn't work out.
Right.
There's just like I think there's so much like temptation and also the ease that, hey, I have been seeing this person for the past X number of years and it was so easy just to sleep with them, and like you feel like it's hard not to anymore. But the sooner you break away from it, I think the easier the process of getting through that breakup becomes, and you don't end up overly complicating things after that.
Yeah. I think it's I was just thinking about this just now. It's as humans, we like value different levels of companionship. So I think it's a little scary, that initial like, oh shit, like I'm gonna be alone for a little bit. And it's something like I had to like personally work on. I was like, you know what? I'm perfectly fine with potentially never marrying or just being single like my entire life. And then like that takes a huge burden off.
Right.
Or this whole notion that just like one person for every person, where it's like, no, you it's possible to find a similar connection you had with that ex with someone else. Or if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. But like once I was able to like detach myself, like it's not a one-to-one relationship, and let's say it is, then just be happy with myself. And then I think once I started working on that, like that helped a ton. So
right. I think for me, because I'm always very like, if I'm idle, like something bad's gonna happen. So I just try to. I think at that moment, while I didn't really have the conversation with her, I tried to like get back to what made me happy. At the time it was, improving the jump shot because it was kind of flaky at that point.
That Lonzo Ball.
Yeah. Had to work on that a little bit. Went to the gym, had to beef up because, I'm 5'8", and the guys I'm going up against are like 6'1", 6'2", solid. So I had to be even more solid than they were so I could take the hits. Studying, because I always, after practice was always get to the books, hit the books hard, things like that. Just come to realization of like what has made me who I am and why am I here. At the end of the day, like I said, I was in college. The whole point of college is not to chase chicks, but it's to get this degree, get this diploma, better myself. Money over any day of the week. So that's how I had to think of it as. And like I said, once I got to that point, I was good. Like she would come around, talk whatever she wanted to talk.
Wait, she still came around?
She still came around, but I would be like, look, I got to study. You got to get out. Like I was very like at that point, like very hard nosed. Like once I got to that point, get out.
That's
like,
good. That's
yeah.
good.
So once you actually got to the point where you knew that, hey, this interaction isn't healthy for me, you took a step back, you discontinued doing it. Mm-hmm. And even though the temptation still came through, you kind of held your own.
I was just like, no, you got to go. Like I got things to do. I got people to see.
That's good. Yeah. I think that's exactly what we were talking, that I wish I had more of that going through it. It's just the resolve to figure it out on your own and taking care of yourself and your issues and your emotional kinks and stuff that you have, and doing it on your own time and not falling into the traps of going back to that person because you already know that it's not going to work out. It's just like not going to happen.
I think having a good support system as well helps. So like you just talk to your close circle of family, friends, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry that didn't work out. And then a lot of times I always laugh because they're like, oh, I noticed this. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me that then? Like, telling me this now doesn't help. So yeah, so just like talking it through to people, like whether it's you just ranting or they providing feedback, like I'm sure they'll know like the type of environment to provide, so you could start like the healing process. And hooking up just like essentially just pauses the timer. Like you can't start that process if you're still physically and emotionally attached to that person. So
you gotta rip that Band-Aid off at some point. So yeah. All right, guys, let us know what you think. Do you think you should be hooking up with your ex? I personally think no, but if you think differently, let us know.
And thanks for joining us today at No Free Drinks. Don't forget that our episodes release every single Wednesday, of course, hump day. But the easiest way to stay in touch with us is to just subscribe to our podcast. And you can find us by searching No Free Drinks on your favorite podcast app. But for my Apple users, show us some love, especially if you love what you're hearing. Rate us and leave us a review. And specifically, if you're a big social media user, don't forget to follow us on Instagram. You can find us at _NoFreeDrinks. And in our bio, we have a link where you can easily connect to wherever we're playing our podcast, as well as our other social media platforms. And we hope that you loved today. Thanks for coming. I hope it was good for you too. This is Lena D. Kisses.
This is Wesley. Peace out, Girl Scouts.
Hey guys, this is Brock. Make love, not babies.